target time on the left, and Schumacher goes 1.1 seconds faster.
My plan is to go flat out until the end, and then we see what is the positions of who, and then we will make whatever decisions is necessary. But it will be interesting.
It's race day at Sepang, sweltering heat and very high humidity at the futuristic circuit just outside Kuala Lumpur. The Malaysian Grand Prix will be a new experience for the teams, the drivers and for Murray Walker.
Here at Sepang, Formula One is taking a giant leap into the future, and it's a mind-blowing experience. Because this 3.4-mile brand new circuit is a state-of-the-art facility which has been built regardless of cost. Malaysia has spent something like £75 million to create it, and it's an incredible experience. Wonderful circuits, superb viewing facilities, the grandstands, the garages, everything else are absolutely as they should be, and everywhere else in Formula One is going to have to take their time from Sepang. And to complete the magic of Malaysia, Michael Schumacher is back, and he's starting from pole position a second faster than anyone else. It's going to be a great race.
I know it will be. Thank you very much indeed, Murray. Welcome to our London studio. I'm passing on the Rugby World Cup this weekend to take in the last couple of races of an absolutely compelling Formula One season. Tony Jardine keeping me company as always. Hi, Tony.
Hello. Guess
there's a touch of the old Jonah Low moves, isn't there, about the way Michael Schumacher, he's come back and he's trampled over all the opposition.
I'm afraid so. I don't think there's anyone can tackle him today. Of course, in Formula One, you never know. Quite amazed, really. 12 weeks in coming back, 6 races he's missed. It's worth waiting for, but if you compare it to Niki Lauda, who was actually administered the last rites, he missed 2 races back in 6 weeks. However, learning a new circuit, Schumacher's been brilliant. It could be wet today, he could be in a league of his own, but only 10 days ago he was limping around and complaining of feeling tired. So can he go the full 16 rounds? I hope so.
OK, thank you, Tony. We'll see that qualifying session in just a moment. A great hour as well for the stewards. Rubens Barrichello and Johnny Herbert are both going to start in the top 6, this following the elation of their best ever Grand Prix. The European last time out at the Nürburgring.
Yes, nice one, Frentzen. David Coulthard has got hit. Mika Häkkinen coming up alongside him. David Coulthard is blocked by Frentzen. Häkkinen moves up into second position. So he's already taken his teammate, David Coulthard, whose job now will be not only to...
Oh, somebody's over.
Bang! And that's Benetton in the background.
Sauber, I think, Murray. Sauber upside down.
Yeah, Sauber upside down. Benetton behind it. And, oh dear, the driver should be all right. You can see him moving inside the car. So, Frentzen leads, Häkkinen, Coulthard, Schumacher, Fisichella. Look at that cloud, just look at that cloud.
And Fisichella running wide, Irvine surely must get him this time.
David Coulthard just nudges ahead of the determined German, and they're both having a go at Mika Häkkinen. Oh, this is incredible, and Schumacher's pass. Here comes the rain.
Mika a bit hesitant coming into the box there, but it was Ron Dennis's call. The moment he saw Frentzen was going by, he brought Häkkinen in, a brilliant piece of timing. There's no tyre here.
I've never seen anything like it. But the track is not wet enough for the tyres that Häkkinen's on. It either needs to rain again or he needs to get in the pits quick. So Häkkinen having to come back in for slicks. A bit odd that he was actually going off on the wet bits on wets.
The key words in Formula One, there's 3 of them, are never give up. Fight, fight, fight every inch of the way. Frentzen and Fisichella has exited the pit lane. Frentzen stops. David Coulthard now is on 10 World Championship points.
Oh
and
no, Coulthard off the road.
David Coulthard has gone off. Wow. Schumacher leads Fisichella by 19 seconds. Third is Herbert, and he is catching Fisichella.
think he's got a puncture, right rear puncture.
Johnny Herbert leads at the Nürburgring. This is Madar out of the race.
Look at this, look, Hackett has suddenly realised after cruising for most of the race, he can catch Irvine. Hakkinen takes what will be 6th place as they go over the line. I think Barrichello's got a better shot this time. He really had some speed. I think if he brakes super late, he should turn in front of him. No, the back end was snaking too much on the downshift, and Barrichello, well, truly managing somehow, saying, OK, I'm going to brake when you do. That's Hakkinen taking 5th. Hakkinen up into 2 points.
And here is Johnny Herbert in the Stewart. Johnny Herbert in the Stewart turns into corner 13 and takes the checkered flag to win. And there is Jackie Stewart. Wow, oh, words fail me.
Just great entertainment, and just today's race and the Japanese to go then. Hakkinen clinging to that 2-point advantage. You should know, if he wins and Irvine isn't in the top 4, the Flying Finn is the champion again. Schumacher's returned with the team championship very much in mind. Ferrari 8 points behind McLaren. Jordan and Williams, they've been off the pace so far. Stewart's, though, they fancy their chances of overtaking Williams. But really, no one has got close to Michael Schumacher in that qualifying session. He's missed, 3 months since breaking his leg at Silverstone. But now he's back, and typically back right on the money. James Allen reporting.
After 3 months away from the cockpit, Michael Schumacher embarrassed his contemporaries in qualifying yesterday with one of the most dominant performances of his career. The German opened with a strong time to claim provisional pole and simply moved the target out of reach with his 3rd flying lap. The only man to break the 1-minute 40-second barrier at this new track.
Schumacher goes 1.1 seconds faster.
Ferrari had unlocked the full potential of the car. Behind him, the championship contenders battled it out. Irvine going 2nd with his first effort. McLaren were the only team to opt for the hard tyres and suffered from a lack of balance in the car, with the back end stepping out in the medium-fast corners. They tried a host of different solutions, but couldn't find the speed. David Coulthard took 3rd place, and Mika Hakkinen split the 2 Ferraris, but Irvine had the measure of him and snatched it back immediately.
Eddie Irvine has done it.
Hakkinen had resigned himself to 3rd place and headed for Parc Ferme, but his teammate nicked it from him in the final seconds.
And David Coulthard, 3rd position, ahead of Mika Hakkinen.
Heinz-Harald Frenzen's slim hopes of a championship have all but evaporated after a series of mishaps. First, his headrest came loose, causing him to spin. The spare was set up for Damon Hill, and after a lengthy swap over, he went out only to suffer brake problems. Damon made it into the top 10 in 9th, out-qualifying his teammate for only the 2nd time this year. Stewart looked good, Rubens Barrichello briefly holding 3rd place, but in the end it was the Nürburgring winner Johnny Herbert who came out on top, taking 5th place ahead of his teammate. But no doubt who the hero was. If he can do this with 1 leg, what might he do with 2? So Michael Schumacher's 22nd career pole, but will he be able to go the distance? Eddie Irvine really has something to believe in now. Coulthard and Hakkinen, they'll be faster in the race, but they've got a lot left to do. Then it's the 2 Stewarts of Herbert and Barrichello. Look at that momentum with the Stewart team. Then Wirtz and Ralf Schumacher, Damon Hill and a disappointed Jacques Villeneuve, Fisichella and Olivier Panis in the Prost, ahead of Ricardo Zonta and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Jordan really struggling here this weekend. Jean Alesi lines up 15th, ahead of Alex Zanardi in the 2nd Williams. Then it's Pedro Diniz and Jarno Trulli in the 2nd Prost, and the 2 Minardis and the 2 Arrows escort each other at the back of the grid.
You know, Tony, I'm just interested in Hakkinen's mindset at the moment. What's Schumacher's return done to that?
Well, some experts believe that the hack is about to crack. I don't subscribe to that view fully, but huge amount of pressure on him, mechanical failures, his own mistakes. Now, after the 200-mile-per-hour delamination of the tyre and he went off in Germany, if you remember, they sent him away on holiday. These same experts are saying they should have got him away from the pressure. I don't subscribe to that view, but after each crash he had, like San Marino, he drove badly at Monaco. After Monza, he drove badly at Nürburgring, as we saw. He was absolutely hopeless, too tentative, yet he's still the favourite. You've got to compare him to Irvine, who's so cool, flown his Falcon 10 jet over, huge promotional tour on the way, jogging in the desert, United Arab Emirates, sticking the Psyche knife in as soon as he can, saying MS coming back is great. That's going to really put the wind up McLaren, and of course it is. And he doesn't miss those opportunities, but he loves being the underdog.
OK, thank you, Tony. Well, let's drive you round the Sepang circuit, shall we? There's a very sharp right-hander quite soon after the start, by the way. They've done their best to encourage overtaking as well. It's Michael Schumacher then on his original pole lap yesterday, and Martin Brundle talking you round.
You're on board with Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. He's proven to be the master of this racetrack so far this weekend. Just under 190 miles an hour, braking 100 metres before turn 1. Just 60 miles an hour through their second gear. Keep it over to the right-hand side. Turn 2 follows immediately. Take a lot of curb. The car jumps across the apex. Now turn 3. Let the car begin to run to the outside. Give it its head. Building up speed, 155 already. A short straight towards turn 4. 175 before braking into a slight incline. Tight apex. Back on the throttle again. 75 miles an hour. Building up through turn 5. 135. Listen to Michael Schumacher just using the left foot on the brake to bring the speed down through 6 into 7 and 8. 110 miles an hour through the 2 apexes. There's the first, and sweeping immediately through the second. Another short straight, building up to 170 miles an hour. Put the car on the right-hand side, brake late into turn 9, and turn in late too. 56 miles an hour through the apex. A little bit of wheel spin from the inside tyre. An easy sweeper through 10 and into 11. 137 on the way in, about 90 on the way through. And again, another short straight, 155 into turn 12. Just blend out of the throttle, and a long, long right-hander through 13, then 14. Difficult to pick a line through here, across the apex into a long straight, building up to over 185 miles an hour. Just look how wide that circuit is. Diagonal the straight for the shortest route, be on the right-hand side at the end. Braking a little bit earlier than you perhaps expect. Seems bumpy on the way in. Most of the drivers fighting the car. Take a late apex, use the curb on the right-hand side, minimise the angle, over the grid hatchings, across the start line. Great lap and a magnificent racetrack. Let's see what the other drivers think about it too.
The track is really challenging. It's also quite long as well, which is exciting because, you know, you actually can pull out a lot of time if you get it right. You know, because there's so many corners and you're in a corner the whole time. There's something there for the driver to do.
There's some very slow, ridiculous corners which you feel as if you could walk faster through, and then there's some great corners, great fast S's, which are very pleasing for a driver, but don't really add much to racing because you can't pass someone in those corners.
It's a very nice track to drive on. Demanding corners, difficult corners to drive, difficult to know where you are on the racetrack in a few corners. You know, where to brake, what line to use. So it's a tough track. It's fun. It's very slippery though.
They seem to like the place though. The temperature over there 40 degrees on the track, and the air temperature 28 degrees. Rubens Barrichello quickest in the morning warm-up. I suppose we have to wait and see now, though, if Michael Schumacher can sustain that sort of brilliance over 56 laps. Ferrari seem to have been transformed by the great man's return. That Schumi effect really is absolutely startling. More on that now from James at the circuit.
So Michael Schumacher has clearly not lost any of his pace during the 3-month layoff. Indeed, many feel he's revitalised and has moved his driving onto a different level. But what effect will he have on today's race? Physically, he's not as fit as before the accident. His heart rate is higher when he's in the car, and he has yet to do more than 20 laps at a time. But his leg is no longer a problem, and the curbs here are not fierce, so it's a gentle ride.
I don't see any problem for us what it means tomorrow, and feel reasonably confident. Myself, I don't feel anything. I should believe I'm going flat out through all the race, and we will see what will be the situation by the end.
Tactically, Ferrari will approach today's race like Suzuka in '97, where Irvine and Schumacher combined well to give Schumacher a victory which kept him in the championship. This year the positions are reversed, and the #1 goal is to keep Irvine in front of Häkkinen. The deal is simple. Schumacher will move over only if Irvine is running second on the road at the end of the race.
Personally, as I said, the priority is team and then Eddie, and therefore I will first drive my race, and then we see what happens later in the race, and then we can decide tactics.
Yet you sense that Schumacher is slightly uneasy about being called on to play the #2 and make Eddie the champion, and there's a fierce debate in the paddock about Michael's decision to return. Ferrari insist they didn't pressure him to come back, but after asking him to test so much, they left him with little choice but to come here or appear unhelpful. Schumacher gave his own view on the rumours at a press conference here in Malaysia earlier this week.
I know there is some stories around. I had a meeting with Montezemolo, and Montezemolo made me driving. I think I'm independent enough to take my own decision.
Schumacher himself joked that it was his audience with the Pope last week that made him change his mind. Either way, he's added a dynamic new element to the championship battle and helped Eddie Irvine to get the most out of the Ferrari package. The team has put its recent disappointments behind it, and McLaren will have to be at their absolute best today to overcome the Schumacher effect.
Just under half an hour to go to the start of the race at Sepang. I'm told there is an 80% chance of rain at some time during the Malaysian Grand Prix. Now, Tony, let's revert and talk about Michael Schumacher. Do you detect deep down he's worried about the race today?
His manager's very worried. His manager clearly didn't want him to race at all. No, but I think the thing is, you have to remember, Panis said, I raced under a dark cloud because he still had the plates and pins in his legs. Schumacher still does have that situation, so that might be in the back of his mind. Eddie Jordan has gone further than that. He said at the beginning of the year he thought that Schumacher had lost a bit of his sparkle because of his success and because of his family. But he said that's a big accident. He's hurt himself for the first time. He is taking precautions, special overalls. He will think about it today.
Yeah, Mika Hakkinen, who of course was involved in a big crash himself in Australia a few years ago, he says you always think you're ready before you really are.
I think it's like anybody coming back, you know, from a big injury like that. You know, it's not a complicated injury, fortunately, but all the other drivers, and Martin Brundle has said the same thing, that it will be in the back of the mind. He's qualified, he's been testing, now he's going back into the race for real, wheel to wheel. Everyone will be skidding around him and so. His aim is obviously to get clearly away. It might not bother him at all. He might just go off into the sunset.
Now, what's all this about some faded old driver called Jardine going wheel to wheel with a few people at Donington Park?
Well, Louise Goodman and I were invited. It was the Proton Coupe Cup, the UK Cup. We were invited to a shootout. They said, well, look, you're always talking about it. Why don't you do it on the track? There's Louise in her Proton. Now, she's a formidable rally driver. Yeah, she was focused. I got ahead of her on the grid, fortunately. It was a wet, dry situation, like it could be today. We were on slicks, and rain came on about lap 2. I got a lot of wheel spin away there, and Louise creamed me through into the first corner, but then, having given her a little kiss on the straight, I got my way past.
What do you mean, kiss on the straight?
Well, I touched the back of her at 120 miles an hour. Here's the rain, Louise on slicks. Off she went into the gravel trap, and she was chasing me at the time.
How many fingers did you raise there, by the way?
She raised a few to me. Well, this is the best bit now. She does her Hakkinen. She said she didn't cry. She didn't want to make the Armco barrier rusty. And it was quite difficult to keep the car on the track, but I got 6th place. I really enjoyed it. It was a great opportunity, but she's challenged me again next year.
I think a definite cause for a rematch there. OK, that's the real stuff, though, that we're going to see here in what, around about 25 minutes' time. It's the first leg, really, of an Asian showdown to decide the Formula One World Championship. Japan in a fortnight, but first it is Malaysia. And next we'll have Martin Brundle's views on Sepang. Heading down to the first Malaysian Grand Prix, but now it's time for our last lesson in Martin Brundle's F1 driving school. Martin's given us a genuine insight into what it takes to control a Formula One car. Today, it's the inside track on spins.
Formula One cars will spin off for many reasons, and here's a few of them. Punctures, suspension failure, rear wing collapsing, or simply the driver trying too hard. Well, let's all admit it, we actually enjoy watching the cars spin off the racetrack. Why does that happen? Well, there's 2 ways you can spin a Formula One car. The first is on the way in. You arrive too fast, too deep, too late on the brakes, and you go flying off the road. Well, we've set the Jordan up to be a little bit tow happy as we go into this right-hander, just to demonstrate how easy it is to spin.
I've got on the brakes too late, the back end of the car's come round, and there's nothing I can do about it. As soon as the pendulum swings, you're going round.
Watch the Minardi driver arrive too late, on the brakes still as he's turning in, and he's facing the wrong direction. Villeneuve in the BAR at higher speed doing exactly the same thing. Ralf Schumacher trying to outbrake up the inside on the dirty line, and again he couldn't hold the bag. Now let's watch this Jordan another time. right-hander ahead of us, but I'm too late on the brakes now, and it just spins round. Very little warning when that happens. Let's see that from on board behind the steering wheel. And again, I'm going to brake too late, but usually it's as you downshift, it just finishes it off. There's just not enough grip on the rear tyres, and round she goes.
I managed to grab a handful of clutch, so I'm still in the race. I'll turn the car around and carry on.
So assuming you made it into the corner, you've still got to get through the exit.
You've got a fantastic amount of power underneath your right foot, but you have to be careful with it. If you abuse it,
tweak it a little bit too early and you'll find your engine overtaking you as you're pointing the wrong way down the racetrack and your competitors sailing past.
And Rubens Barrichello, of course, knows as well as does Mika Häkkinen what the Finn is going to try. And he tries right up behind Rubens Barrichello.
Oh, he's going to spin. He caught the white line on the inside.
Mika Häkkinen has shot himself well and truly in both feet.
Well, that looked good fun. Let me have a go, Mika. Eddie Jordan's not watching. The tail end stepping out already. Now I'm going to get on the throttle. And the car spins round amazingly quickly. But as soon as it starts turning, your focus goes to getting it lined up, ready to continue down the racetrack. Well, I did that for you all by myself, with the track to myself. But imagine if you're wheel to wheel with another car, or it's wet, or there's gravel or oil on the track, it becomes even more easier to do that. But you know, you've got to spin from time to time, otherwise your mechanics think you're not trying hard enough. A little bit of fun for me at the end of the day, before we put the car away, just enjoying the power of a Formula One car. Our thanks to the Jordan team, and I hope this series of Formula One driving school has given you a greater insight into the world of the Grand Prix driver.
Yes, indeed it has. Thanks very much indeed, Martin. You've worked in the garage, is that right? If you don't spin, the mechanics think you're not trying?
The mechanics love the driver who really tries, and they don't mind if you bring it all back damaged, provided you've been having a go. If you come back and the bodywork's all still shiny and you finish last or whatever, you get a very, very hard time. But Martin is a fabulous all-round driver, apart from his Grand Prix expertise, and he was one of the drivers that gave Schumacher a very hard time. Sports cars, won Le Mans, put the thing on pole this year, and now he's going rallying in the Works Toyota Corolla this November. He's coming straight back to go testing very soon, and I joked with him. I said it's snowing in the forest. He said, "Oh, not is it?" Because he's going out in the forest this week.
How different would that be for Martin, that rallying experience, do you think?
He said it'd be like trying to go through Eau Rouge, you know, in a Grand Prix car, hurtling through the trees, 130 miles per hour, you know, in 6th or 7th gear. He's got a lot to do. First time he did it in '96, he ended up crashed and quite a few flames from his car. Sorry?
You beat him, didn't you?
Yes, but I didn't want to mention it.
I thought I would. OK. You, Louise and Martin Brundle all taking part in that Network Q rally at the end of next month. Well, while they're over there at Sepang, all the attention has been on big brother Michael. Young Ralf Schumacher has quietly done a very nice deal indeed to extend his stay at Williams. Louise Goodman has been talking to the man who's kept Williams afloat virtually single-handed.
Big brother Michael may be the man of the moment, but for many it's Ralf Schumacher who's been the driver of the season. He's come of age at Williams and recently re-signed till the end of 2002 in a deal worth £10 million.
We wanted to have a stable situation, a team and myself. I had some different offers and, you know, it was just time to decide what I was going to do. And for me, it's still the best to stay with Williams and BMW for the future. That was the reason why we did that. Obviously, how long it is, I can't tell you, but it's a longer-term contract. I mean, we had a great season this year for our circumstance, I could say. I mean, at the end of the day, we scored a few points, had a good few podium finishes, and nearly won a race last time, so why shouldn't I believe into that team?
An inspired drive at the Nürburgring almost earned his first win until a puncture intervened.
It was a shame, especially for the team, because, you know, it would have been so great for us to win that race and the situation we have at present. I mean, nobody would expect us to win a race, so that would have been great. But you know, it just didn't happen. It was a shame.
Other memorable moments included podium finishes in Australia and Silverstone, but there have been tough times too.
But definitely low point was Monaco, where we expected a lot more and didn't manage to do it. And again in Hungary, where we were surprisingly slow. We don't have an easy season because we have an engine which is basically not strong enough to drive where we are. We have to build a car for next year. We have to build a car for the BMW winter testing. We have a new engine approaching to us, so there's so much for the team to do that it's really not so easy this year. And we're going to have another 2 difficult years, I'm sure.
Are you happy with the way you've performed this year?
Yeah, I think I am. I mean, I had a far more consistent situation and car here at Williams, which helped me personally quite a lot. And, you know, it was just a different approach here. I came to this team and they were doing everything they could for me, and that was really great, and it helped me quite a lot.
And one final question, are you happy to have your brother back in the paddock?
Yeah, obviously I'm happy. I mean, it's nice to have him back, and it's nice for him to be back in the car and to race again. I mean, he was desperate to race anyway, so the only small negative side is that there's one big competitor back and one guy to try to take us points away, but that's the way it is.
You know, Tony, we used to say about him, he's only in Formula One because his name's Schumacher.
Well, the worst thing was, in the first 6 months, I thought he was a fully paid-up member of the Brat Pack. I really did. But he turned it round halfway through last year. You remember that 6th place in the British Grand Prix. Not only is he a nice guy, he's a fabulous driver. If Heinz Harald is the revelation of the year, to me, he is the driver of the year. Reason? By the team's own admission, he's in a mediocre car. He's had 10 points finishes this year. Heinz Harald Frenzen's had 9. And he had big offers, and he used it as a lever with Williams very, very well indeed. And I think he's done a fabulous job this year.
Indeed, he has 33 points so far for Ralf Schumacher. That's his old Jordan team that we're looking at there. It is again a very, very warm day over at Sepang in Malaysia. Just under 15 minutes to go to the start of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Just a couple of races to go in the championship. We've heard the drivers talking about Sepang. We've heard Murray Walker likes the place. What about Martin Brundle? I reckon Martin's another fully paid-up member of the Sepang fan club.
Murray's already told you what a wonderful facility this is here in Sepang. What does it mean in real terms for the drivers and teams alike? Well, look at this magnificent pit lane, all the space you could ever ask for. But in the pit garage, for example, the McLaren team can work on all 4 of their cars. That's a spare car for each of the drivers, of course. That can't happen anywhere else in the world. Out back, hospitality facilities for everybody, and a changing room for each driver. Again, nowhere else in the world. Nice place.
Thanks very much indeed, Martin. Now, you might just have seen that here on ITV we have a new agreement to cover Formula One right through to the year 2005. We're absolutely delighted about that, and of course we'll do our best to improve our product to you. Our new agreement, though, includes coverage of Sunday warm-up. Here's Louise with details of that, and then it'll be James with his thoughts on the strategy.
He fooled us all for a while, but on Sunday morning the news broke. Instead of running the harder tyres like Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard made an 11th hour switch to super soft rubber just before the start of qualifying. He'd not run a single lap on the compound, so set-up work was a priority in the warm-up. But is it the right choice?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Again, I won't really know until we get out. None of us have data to know exactly what happens, and on this day in history, in these weather conditions, that's exactly what the tyres are going to do. But that's the decision I've made, and you've got to stick with it now. You can't change.
Rubens Barrichello ended the session quickest. Low fuel loads could have helped, but the Stewarts are definitely on form here.
I made an improvement on the car overnight, and it's going really well. It's a pity that yesterday we didn't have this setup, because the car is such a lot better.
Ferrari looked pretty comfortable, Irvine's 4th and Schumacher's 5th on heavy fuel loads. But Jordan are way off the pace, and both drivers had off-track excursions. They're really struggling.
The car was very difficult. We changed the setup totally overnight to try and find more performance, but we made it worse, and which is a clue. But now we're stuck with the problem of what to do for the race, so we're probably going to go back to what I had in qualifying.
Well, I can tell you that here in the paddock there's an awful lot of head scratching going on there. Teams have no reference material at all concerning strategy, because obviously it's a brand new circuit. But looking at the times from this morning's warm-up, they're obviously evaluating whether to go 1 or 2 stops. I've got the technical director of Jordan, Mike Gascoigne, here. Mike, what are the considerations today for the strategy?
Well, as you said, James, it is pretty difficult. A lot of things going on in the warm-up. A lot of things happening with tyre wear. Tyre wear yesterday looked pretty good. This morning looked very bad. May well clean up in the race. People running different fuel loads as well, looking at 1 and 2 stops. Also, people running different fuel loads in the warm-up. Stewart's, for instance, looking as though they're running more fuel, coming in, taking it out, and running new tyres. So it's pretty difficult to pick what's going on.
If you were running the Ferrari and the McLaren strategies today, what would you do?
I think if I was Ferrari looked as though they were on one-stop fuel this morning, McLaren on 2. Having said that, if I was Ferrari, I'd look to run 2 stops. They're 1-2 on the grid. Most important thing is to get into the first corner first, and then be able to protect that and dominate the race. Mika's on the hard tyre. You'd think he'd look at 1 stop, and that's why he started on the hard tyre. Coulthard, he's got to get involved with the Ferraris. He's 3rd on the grid, directly behind them. I'd expect to see him go on 2 stops and get stuck into them in the opening laps.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Cheers.
Well, Tony, a big guessing game going on over there.
Very big guessing game, and that's quite usual in Formula One, but Michael Schumacher, he's going to try and leave them all behind. That's what he wants to do. Irvine and Hakkinen have got to concentrate on their own championship game and try and stay in front of each other. But we have to remember in this championship battle there are nervous crews there. They could make a difference. Losing a wheel won't help. So you need all 4 wheels, and you've got the rain question as well. Another Formula One guessing game.
The first all-Ferrari front row of the season. Do you fancy them?
Well, I do, yeah. They look very, very strong indeed, and they've got a fantastic reliability record as well, particularly Eddie Irvine.
Thank you, Tony. So those McLarens on the back foot. Michael Schumacher will be leading the charge to that tricky first corner. Eddie Irvine up there on the front row alongside him. David Coulthard, really, he has to help Hakkinen's challenge. The Stewarts, Johnny Herbert and Rubens Barrichello, both very much in the mix. The Malaysian Grand Prix is next.